Hi, my name is Troy Hubble from YourDyslexiaExpert.com. That handsome gentleman over there is me. Now, one question that I've gotten from a lot of parents is, I have a very young child. They're getting ready for school age, and I'm worried that they might have dyslexia. Maybe you have dyslexia, maybe your partner does, or one of your parents does. How can I help my child? I also just get parents asking, how do I give my child the best possible start in school to make reading as easy for them as it possibly can be? And the answer to both of those questions turns out to be one and the same. That being said, I want to start this video by clarifying something. Dyslexia isn't something that we cause. It's something that we're born with. If a child is born with dyslexia, it's genetic. It's a lifelong condition. We can't actually cure it or make it go away. And I don't even really like using the word cure for dyslexia. I don't think that's the right way to think about it at all. There's nothing wrong with people who have dyslexia, but that's a whole nother video. Anyways, what we can do is we know that if we give children the best possible reading instruction, if we align our reading instruction with what the science says that they need to be able to do in order to learn how to read, we can teach nearly every child how to read at a proficient level. So how do we do that? How can you help your kid? Well, the first thing that we do when we screen young kids for risk factors for reading, it's important to know that if your child's had a dyslexia screener, they don't have a diagnosis. This is just a way to determine whether they're at risk for the kinds of reading challenges that are associated with dyslexia. But when we screen a child to see if they are at risk for reading difficulties, the first thing we test is alphabetic awareness, the alphabetic principle. And that's really simple. Do you know your letters? That's really it. A really common way to do this is to give kids a list of randomized letters, see if they can tell us the names of those letters. And often we'll do the same and see if they can tell us the sounds of those letters. And it's not that the ability to name random letters is an important reading skill. It isn't. We just know that when kids are really proficient with their letters from the start of kindergarten and from a very young age, that they have a huge advantage and they're way more likely to be successful with their overall reading as they continue to grow. So how do you help with this skill? This one's easy. Teach your kid their letters. There's all sorts of ways to do this. There's coloring books, there's games, there's matching activities. One pro tip that I will give you is it turns out that the brain actually does much better with things when they're in order. And so teaching the alphabet in order, like that ABC song that we all sang when we were kids, actually turns out to be kind of a helpful thing. Same thing if you're doing matching activities, matching like little cutout letters to letters in alphabetical order on a page or anything like that, that order can actually help. Phonological awareness is the next thing we look at. And phonological awareness really just means, can I hear and manipulate the spoken sounds in English? And phonological awareness at the level that's really important to reading is called phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness is just the awareness of those smallest units of sound. So for example, in the word cat, the phonemes, the smallest units of sound are k, a, t. We know that the ability to isolate, manipulate, and play with sounds is absolutely crucial in learning how to read. So what can you do to help your child with this skill? There's actually a lot you can do. One is just play with rhymes. Old nursery rhymes, read them. They're great. Play rhyming games. We had a little thing that we would do when I was a kid that said like banana, fana, fofana, me, my, mamana. Those things are great for playing with the spoken sounds in language. Pig Latin. If you can teach your kid Pig Latin, I promise you they have good phonemic awareness. That's actually some advanced phonemic awareness skills in Pig Latin. Play with language. Just have fun with words. Have fun with pronunciation. Anything you can do to get kids playing with sounds and rhyming and hearing rhymes and identifying sounds is a really important thing. Have them isolate sounds. Say, hey, if I say the word cat, what's the first sound? Yeah. Now, what are the other sounds in cat? At. Right. If your kid can do those kinds of things, their phonemic awareness is in a really good spot, especially when they're just coming in and starting their school career. It's fine to stay with rhymes and some of those higher level skills for a while before moving into those isolated sounds with really young kids. But it's those sound level skills, the phonemic awareness, that are really, really important for reading. And you want to start to work on those as quickly as you can. And a pro tip when you're working with any sort of a phonemic awareness activity is to clearly model sounds with your mouth. So kids, really all kids, but especially kids with dyslexia, have trouble discriminating speech sounds that are really close to each other. So an example of that is p and b. Those sounds are made exactly the same way in our mouth. The only difference is that p is just air in my mouth. B is actually me vibrating my vocal cords with that air in my mouth to produce what we call a voiced sound. P is what we call unvoiced. If you can have kids notice what your mouth is doing, if you can make sure that they can see your mouth and see how you're articulating the sounds, you can even play with voiced and unvoiced by having them touch their throat and see whether they feel their vocal cords vibrate. That will help them discriminate between sounds. When kids have a hard time hearing the difference between sounds that are very similar, sometimes it's easier to teach them to feel the difference. So if they can be aware of what your mouth is doing when you make the sounds and what their mouth is doing when they make the sounds, it's much easier to teach them those phonemic awareness skills because they can feel the sounds as they're making them. The last thing that we test when we're doing a dyslexia screener is rapid naming. Rapid naming really just means auditory processing speed. Now, rapid naming is kind of like a biological speed limit. Everyone has some speed, which is about the fastest they can go in terms of retrieving auditory information. And it turns out that this skill is really important for reading, as well as a number of other things. When we measure this skill, usually what we do is we find something that the kid knows really, really well, like colors. And we'll give them a list of colored dots. And we'll say, all right, start at the beginning and tell me the names of each of these colors as quickly as you can. And we'll time how quickly they can go through their list. Red, blue, red, green, yellow, red, blue, etc. What that tells us is we know that they know this information. And so nothing about their memory is getting in the way of this skill. We want to know how fast they're able to link the idea of the color they see to that sound information and give us the sound. Because when kids read, how quickly they can look at a letter and retrieve the sound that that letter represents turns out to be really, really important. Now, here's the bummer with rapid naming. There's no research I've ever seen claiming that you can change somebody's rapid naming speed. It's just a speed limit. And if a kid has low rapid naming speed, we know that they're probably just going to read a little bit more slowly than everybody else, and that's okay. We can give them extra time. That being said, what we can do is increase the efficiency with which their brain uses that rapid naming speed. So think of it this way. Let's pretend that you're sending out invitations for a party, and you have a desk that is just a mess. There's papers everywhere, the names are scattered all over, the addresses are scattered all over. You've got a sandwich from yesterday, and there's a pile of paper clips and a mess of wires. It's going to take you a lot longer to get all of the names and invitations organized, or names and addresses organized to send out those invitations. But if you have a neat stack of names and addresses, and all you're doing is copying them down onto envelopes or whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to get through that task a lot faster. Rapid naming is the same. We can't change the speed with which you can copy the information, but we can organize your desk. We can organize the brain's desk so that it has a really clear, easy, and predictable way to go about using that rapid naming speed to perform the kinds of skills that it's going to need to perform. When kids have really efficient reading skills, really strong alphabetic awareness, really strong phonemic awareness, it makes the rapid naming less impactful because there's less work for them to do to retrieve the information they need. So when a kid has poor rapid naming, poor processing speed, we want to overteach those other skills to make their processing speed as efficient as it possibly can be. We can't make them faster, but we can make what they have to do easier. Now, a last thing that I want to talk about, those are the skills for half of reading. When we talk about reading, reading is 2 skills. It's decoding, so word recognition. That's what those letter knowledge skills and those phonological awareness skills and part of what those rapid naming skills get us to. But there's this whole other side of reading, which is language comprehension. And that's really, 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 really important and not something we ever want to neglect. So these are some other things that I strongly suggest that you do with your child to get them ready for school. The first is read aloud to your kids and talk about what you were reading. If you take nothing else from this video, just do that. Kids in school who have been read to are immediately recognizable by their teachers. They have a stronger vocabulary, they have a better grasp of complex language, they are more ready for school. I cannot overstate how helpful it is just to read to your kids and expose them to the kinds of vocabulary and sentence structures that are in books. And you can read anything to them. Books from when you were a kid, newspaper articles, the sky's the limit. If you're having fun and they're having fun and they're engaged in hearing the language, they're getting a benefit from it. Another tip is to use sophisticated language with your kids. It's really easy to dumb down the way that we talk with kids, but can actually be counterproductive. We want kids to have a strong vocabulary and a strong understanding of language. So we don't want to use words that are so esoteric, so specific that kids don't understand what we're saying. We need to talk in a way that they can understand. But that doesn't mean that we're going to only use simple words. We can still use all of our more sophisticated vocabulary to express ourselves, kind of in the way that I just did with that sentence. And kids are sponges. They will soak those words up, especially very young kids. Don't dumb down your language more than you have to be understandable. Let them hear as many different words and nuances as they possibly can. And on that note, get your kids to talk as much as possible. Yes, as adults, this can be a little bit frustrating. Sometimes we need some peace and quiet. But hear me out. If kids are talking, they're engaged and they're playing with language. If you can get them to talk about different things, different topics, and different things that they're interested in, that's a lot of language practice that's going to really help them down the road. Now, I also would say, take your kids out as much as you can and give them experiences. And that goes hand in hand with the whole idea of getting your kids talking. So if you take a kid to a baseball game, they're going to know words like strike and umpire and home run. They're going to have heard of the 7th inning stretch. And they're going to know that stretching isn't just this thing that you do in the morning. It can involve getting up and walking around, or in my case, getting a hot dog. When kids have exposure to all sorts of different things and activities out in the world, they have a huge array of vocabulary that they can use to help themselves out. And they also build these things which we call schema, which are connected ideas. Schema is how we learn. The more knowledge we have, the easier it is to learn new knowledge, because we learn new knowledge by relating it to things we already know. Give your kid as many experiences as you can. And last, let your kids' interests guide what you do. If your kid is interested in dinosaurs, buy them dinosaur toys. Read to them about dinosaurs. Take them to a museum. There's no reason to try to push your kid towards things that they're not interested in, when if you let their interests guide what you do, you can have them engaged and entertained all day while learning very important, very valuable skills. If you do all of the things on this list and the things that we talked about, your kid will have a huge advantage in school. Watch them fly. If, however, you notice that your kid is still struggling, or if you know a kid who is struggling and maybe didn't have some of these, please visit yourdyslexiaexpert.com. I can help. Please, as always, like this video and subscribe to the channel for more tips for how to help students with dyslexia. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day or evening or whatever time it is for you. Reach out, as always, with any questions, comments, or concerns, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.